WNBA finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. You know, I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just, you know, it's obvious.
Everything appeared perfect on the surface. If you were casually scrolling through social media feeds or catching the highlight packages, you'd be convinced the WNBA had finally arrived at the promised land it had been chasing for decades. We witnessed sold-out arenas that were once embarrassingly empty, viewership records obliterating ceilings that had remained firmly in place for 20 years, and a rookie class bringing unprecedented levels of mainstream fame the league had never experienced before. But while fans across the country were celebrating what seemed like a golden era finally dawning, something far more sinister was quietly brewing behind the closed doors of executive offices. The league that everyone assumed was exploding in popularity is actually teetering dangerously on the edge of total collapse. What comes next could change women's basketball forever. The celebration is over, and the reality check has arrived with a brutal, unforgiving slam. We're not discussing a temporary hiatus or a brief pause in the action to regroup. We're staring directly at a nightmare scenario where the lights simply go out across every arena, the doors locked permanently, and an entire season doesn't happen at all. The indefinite shutdown is no longer whispered speculation or paranoid rumor. It's become the most likely outcome of an all-out war that has just been officially declared between players and league management. To truly understand how we arrived at this catastrophic moment, you have to look far past the manufactured glitz of All-Star Weekend celebrations and those viral social media moments that captured everyone's attention. What's really happening behind the scenes will shock you. It feels like a glitch in the matrix, a reality that doesn't compute. You turn on your television and witness millions of people tuning in with genuine excitement. Jerseys selling out in mere minutes after and ticket prices on secondary markets reaching stratospheric levels usually reserved exclusively for NBA Finals games. By every visible metric available to the public, business should be absolutely booming right now. The hype train left the station at maximum speed with no signs of slowing down. But industry insiders are quietly leaking a completely different narrative, one that paints a disturbing picture of a business in critical condition despite the surface success. Reports have surfaced claiming that despite all this unprecedented hype, despite the Caitlin Clark effect revolutionizing interest, and despite the massive influx of eager corporate sponsors throwing money at partnerships, the league is somehow set to lose a staggering $50 million this year alone. How does any business with record-breaking income manage to hemorrhage that much cash? The question has everyone scratching their heads in confusion. This financial mystery has fueled explosive rumors of gross mismanagement at the highest levels, creative accounting practices that don't pass the smell test, and a vicious power struggle threatening to burn the entire house down around everyone involved. The math simply isn't adding up in any logical way, and when the money doesn't make sense in professional sports, serious trouble is never far behind. The warning signs are everywhere for those paying attention. You have players looking out at the stands every night, seeing 18,000 screaming fans creating electric atmospheres, and then checking their bank accounts afterward only to realize the math is fundamentally broken. This glaring disconnect has triggered a devastating chain reaction that led directly to the ultimate nuclear option in sports labor relations. This isn't idle speculation or fear-mongering anymore. The countdown to potential disaster has officially started ticking. The Players Association, the powerful union representing every single athlete in the league, pulled the trigger and formally opted out of the current collective bargaining agreement. In plain English that everyone can understand, that means the contract keeping this league operational is being completely torn up. They have effectively served the league divorce papers, and there's no going back from this decision now. If a new deal is signed by the rapidly approaching deadline at the conclusion of the 2025 season, the league executes a complete lockout. No games played, no practices held, no paychecks issued, no media appearances scheduled. This is the indefinite shutdown that fans are absolutely terrified of becoming reality. The players are betting everything on themselves right now. They genuinely believe they have finally generated enough leverage and public support to force the owner's hands into fair negotiations. They're pointing directly at those television ratings and saying with conviction, "We created this explosion of interest. Now pay us accordingly." But the league is clapping back hard. claiming the financial pockets are completely empty and that players are demanding money that simply does not exist yet in the revenue streams. It's a high-stakes game of chicken playing out in real time, and right now, neither side is even thinking about blinking first. Who will break first, or will both sides drive straight off the cliff together? The terrifying part for fans who VA invested emotionally in this league is that we VA witnessed this exact movie before in other major sports, and it rarely ends well for anyone involved. When billionaire owners and millionaire athletes fight bitterly over percentage points and contract language, the fans are usually the ones left standing out in the cold, holding worthless tickets. But this time, the stakes are genuinely existential for the league's survival. The WNBA does not possess the deeper financial reserves of the NBA or NFL to weather an extended storm. A prolonged lockout could kill all this hard-earned momentum entirely, transforming the next big thing into a forgotten has-been overnight. The window of opportunity may be closing faster than anyone realizes. Let's dig deep into the controversial numbers that have players publicly accusing the league of outright lying. The revenue has reportedly jumped to over $200 million, a historic high that should have everyone celebrating. Yet somehow, executives claim they're deeper in the red than ever before in the league's history. How is that mathematically possible? Speculation is running absolutely wild that the financial books are being deliberately cooked, or at minimum massaged strategically, to prevent players from getting their contractually fair share. This is admittedly a classic, time-tested tactic in sports, labor negotiations across every league. Cry poverty loudly when the union comes knocking for raises. Critics are pointing out that expenses have certainly increased. Sure, the league spent $25 million on charter flights to address legitimate safety concerns, and marketing budgets have swelled considerably, but does any of that realistically explain a $50 million loss? It feels like an elaborate shell game designed to confuse everyone. The players see the massive piles of cash flooding in from lucrative new media deals and enormous expansion fees. We're talking millions upon millions of dollars just for new franchises to enter the league. And they re-asking one devastatingly simple question that no one can seem to answer: where is it all going? The complete lack of financial transparency has created a trust gap that might be too wide to ever bridge again. Players like Kelsey Plum have been consistently vocal about this issue for years now, repeatedly pointing out that they aren't even asking for millions of dollars in base salary like NBA stars. They're simply asking for a fair percentage of the revenue they personally generate through their play and marketability. In the NBA, players receive roughly 50% of all revenue generated. In the WNBA, that critical number has historically been shrouded in mystery, but it's certainly nowhere even close to 50%. Can this massive gap ever be closed? The league argues defensively that revenue sharing only kicks in after the league finally turns an actual profit. But since the league has consistently claimed they have turned a single profit in 27 years of operation, the players effectively get 0% of any upside whatsoever. It's a cleverly designed trap, almost brilliant in its construction, that the players have finally decided to break out of by any means necessary. They're tired of hearing wait until next year or be patient for the growth to materialize. The growth everyone promised is here, right now. The waiting period is officially over, and action must be taken immediately. While the league argues endlessly about profit margins and EBITDA calculations, the athletes are exhausted from barely scraping by financially in comparison to their actual value. We're re-witnessing the absolute best female basketball players in the entire world, earning a small fraction of what a benchwarmer makes in the G League or NBA. For decades, this unconscionable wage gap forced women to travel and play in dangerous overseas territories during the off-season just to pay basic bills and support their families. We all remember the absolute nightmare involving Brittany Griner in Russia that captivated the nation. That terrifying situation was a harsh wake-up call that shook the league to its very core, highlighting the desperate lengths players had to go to just to secure any semblance of financial future. The players are completely done, risking their safety, their freedom, and their bodies in foreign leagues for a paycheck they should rightfully be earning at home in America. The time for change is now, not later. This fight isn't just about salaries and paychecks, though. It's fundamentally about equity and ownership. The players want a legitimate piece of the pie they're baking every single night. They want to actually own a meaningful part of the league they are actively building with their blood, sweat, and tears. They watch the rising valuations of teams with frustration. The Seattle Storm was recently valued at a massive number, and the new Golden State Valkyries paid a record-shattering expansion fee. The team owners are watching their asset values triple and quadruple in just a few short years, becoming exponentially wealthier just by holding on to the team and doing nothing. Meanwhile, the players who actually drive that entire value, who put their knees, ankles, and careers on the line every single night, see absolutely none of that long-term wealth creation. They simply employees working in a factory where the owners are getting filthy rich off the rising stock price while workers get nothing. Can this fundamentally unfair system continue? The new CBA demands currently on the table are going to include aggressive equity sharing provisions, major pension improvements, and comprehensive family planning benefits that frankly should have been standard 10 years ago. But there's a massive elephant in the room that absolutely no one wants to talk about openly: the NBA. For decades, the men's league has subsidized the WNBA's operations, effectively paying the bills to keep the lights on when revenue fell short. The NBA owns roughly 60% of the WNBA's equity. Without the NBA's consistent financial backing year after year, the WNBA likely would have folded completely years ago. But the NBA is now facing its own significant financial adjustments. The media landscape is changing dramatically, and NBA owners are examining their bottom lines far more aggressively than ever before. Will the NBA continue supporting the WNBA through this crisis, or is the safety net about to disappear?